Direct contact overlay mounting, also known as DCO mounting, involves transparent or nearly transparent materials to cover, support, and securely attach an item in a frame using no adhesive on the item, so the attachment is minimally invasive and easily reversible. DCO techniques are low risk, uncomplicated, cost-effective, and framer-friendly, using ordinary framing tools and shop equipment. Illustrated instructions and many examples are shown in my new book, The Complete Guide to Direct Contact Overlays, DCO. Like all mounting techniques used in custom picture framing, DCO mounting has limitations. There are lots of useful applications for DCO mounting, but it's not a panacea. Let's talk about some caveats and cautions that apply to DCO mounting as well as to some other mounting and framing processes. DCO mounting is often suitable for preservation framing, when some traditional mounting methods would not work. For example, for an aged, damaged, deteriorated document or textile that would be too fragile to support its own weight from a few small points of attachment. Professional conservation treatment might stabilize it, add years to its useful life, and improve its appearance too. When conservation treatment is appropriate, consider DCO mounting as a supplement to that benefit and not necessarily a substitute for it. For preservation framing projects, the recommended DCO mounting materials are chemically inert, stable, and generally non-reactive with most things framed. Even so, all of the materials within a protective framing package should be carefully selected to avoid chemical reactivity inside the closed environment of the framing package and to provide long service life. For example, use only PPFA Class 1 museum grade boards made from cotton linters or PPFA Class 2 conservation grade boards made from purified pulp. These boards are comprised of virgin alpha cellulose fibers, and they have high quality colorants to resist bleeding or fading. Also, use 97% or better UV filtering glazing products, and make sure all of the adhesives within the framing package are acid-free and chemically non-reactive. Adhesives like silicone and construction adhesives still are unacceptable. Likewise, make sure the paints, inks, and other materials you might use to create decorative features are chemically inert and long-term stable. DCO mounting should not be used when direct contact of the overlay material could damage the item. Deep texture, like the soft thickness of Angora, mohair, or crewel needlework, probably could not withstand the DCO pressure without some flattening or compression. Also, three-dimensional features like buttons, charms, or other objects glued or sewn into a cross stitch or needlepoint could be pressed into the pillow of underlying batting. If the item's texture could be flattened, compressed, or distorted by pressure on its surface, then DCO mounting should be avoided. Soft or sticky materials, like raised ink text in a document or impasto, heavily textured paint, in an artwork, could adhere to an overlay material in direct contact. Residue of wax in a batik, appliques of vinyl, rubber, sealing wax, or other soft material might also stick to the overlay. If decorations are attached to the item, like patches or ribbons, the adhesive used to attach them could permeate or ooze out at the edges and stick to the overlay material. So before choosing a DCO mounting technique, make sure nothing in the item to be mounted could stick to the overlay material. Beware of harmful abrasion. Everything in a frame expands and contracts in response to environmental temperature and humidity changes, and at varying rates, especially if the changes are rapid or radical. Where different materials are pressed together in direct contact, normal expansion and contraction cycles can create a slightly abrasive, slow motion abrasive action, a scrubbing action, which could, over time, harm the surface of the item or the overlay material. The friable media from charcoal or pastel artworks could transfer to the overlay material or smear due to that slight scrubbing action. So avoid DCO mounting when these potential problems exist. Rapid, radical, or frequent ambient changes increase the potential for harm. So, for items that are susceptible to abrasion damage, DCO mounting could be ill-advised. A climate-controlled environment with constant or slowly changing temperature and humidity would be beneficial for all frame displays, but especially when DCO mounting is involved. In storage and in transit, where it may be difficult or impossible to control ambient changes, use tightly closed, insulated packaging to slow the rate of change as much as possible in and around the frame. Never use glass as a direct contact overlay material. In typical framing assemblies, glass is usually separated from the items in the frame, and that provision of airspace normally accommodates the conditions that occasionally cause condensation. DCO mounting with clear film or with fine mesh fabric, as with traditional mounting techniques, involves the usual separation from the outer glazing. But acrylic DCO framing requires pressing the framed item directly against the inside of the glazing. Most of these recommendations apply to all preservation framing, but especially with DCO mounting. DCO mounting may be useful for a deteriorated, fragile antique paper or textile unable to support its own weight because it provides support over the entire surface area. By this attribute, DCO mounting would be less stressful and more secure than typical mounting techniques that provide support only at certain points on an item's edges, making it vulnerable to further damage from gravitational stress or forces of impact concentrated at the attachment points. In addition, DCO mounting serves to attach three-dimensional objects, such as balls, books, newspapers, coins, medallions, cylindrical items, some oddly shaped items like a sand dollar or a seashell. Direct contact overlays generally are surface mounting techniques. That is, the face and edges or sides of an item can be visible, even on a three-dimensional object like a book or a tennis ball. In many cases, a mounted item can be elevated above a decorative background to create visual emphasis, which provides great versatility in the framing design. Most DCO mounts are inconspicuous, and some are nearly invisible, as well as being fast and easy to construct. Clear polyester film, Mylar D, Melanex 516, and Hostafon 43SM, and similar polyester films can be most useful to attach documents, currency bills, and the like. A simple overlay on a backing board can show the front, or an encapsulation mount can show both the front and the back of the item. These DCO techniques have been popular for many years among conservators and some picture framers. These pictures show a couple of applications for clear film encapsulation. A popular mounting technique to show all edges and both sides of the item. You might already know about this DCO mounting technique, but did you know that all clear film has curvature? And in most cases, the convex side of the clear film should be in contact with the item. Also, clear film encapsulation mounts work in three ways. There's a pinching action, a static charge, and center pressure when the convex sides are placed in contact. Clear film spider mounts are direct contact overlays for coins and medallions, providing secure attachment and precise positioning, while avoiding the damage of direct adhesive attachment. These mounts can be traced around the shape of the item and trimmed out using an X-Acto or other blade. If multiple similar coins or medallions are to be mounted, a computerized mat cutter can make quick work of creating these spider mounts. DCO mounting for a book usually involves wrapping in clear film. The clear film book mount uses a vertical and horizontal wraps for secure attachment in a float mount that shows all sides. Even a deteriorated book with a weak binding can be securely supported in a clear film book mount. The vertical wrap, shown in blue, secures the book through two narrow horizontal slots in the substrate. The horizontal wrap, shown in red, provides lateral support and holds the cover closed. No adhesive touches the book, and again, it is securely supported. If a book is to be removable from its mount, a transparent box can be folded to fit from a single piece of clear film. Removal and replacement of the book in the mount is easily accommodated through a door in the back of the frame. For a whole newspaper, a similar assembly of vertical and horizontal clear film sheets provides sturdy overall support with minimal obstruction to the viewing all sides. Let's go on and talk about fine mesh fabric DCOs. Nylon tulle, wedding veil fabric, sheer silk, and finely woven or non-woven synthetic fabrics are useful for mounting spherical objects of moderate size and weight, like a golf ball, tennis ball, or baseball. These fabrics can also be stretched over other objects like a hockey puck or a sand dollar, for example, to make secure, inconspicuous, non-adhesive attachments. The golf ball is wrapped in nylon tulle, and the ends are pulled through a nest hole and attached to the back of the mounting board. In a similar process, the tennis ball is wrapped in crepeline, which is a fine mesh silk organdy. Nylon tulle would also work, but its weave would be more visible than the fine mesh silk. The fragile sand dollar is wrapped in crepeline, and its edges are glued to the back of a slightly undersized backing of mat board. Could be foam board too. Crepeline is a brand of French silk organdy, so sheer and supple that it can be nearly invisible when it's stretched over a fairly smooth textile surface, like a silk scarf, a flag, a needlepoint, or a cross stitch. When the glossy surface of clear film would be objectionable, crepeline provides a matte finished DCO attachment for paper items, like maps and documents too. Usually, the fine mesh fabric mounts for flat items involve simple wrapping, perhaps with a layer of polyester batting to prevent wrinkles on a large item. The edges of the fabric are to be attached on the back of a same size or a slightly oversized backing board. Acrylic gel medium makes an excellent heat-activated, chemically stable adhesive for this purpose. Paint it on the back edges of the board, let it dry, and then activate the bond using a heated iron through the fabric and a slip of release paper or mylar to keep the iron clean. This ragged-edged cross stitch is held by gentle pressure of the fine mesh DCO mount using crepeline and a pillow of polyester batting under the blue background fabric, with no adhesive in contact. Let's talk about acrylic DCOs. Flat items like documents, maps, newspapers, and textiles can be pressed against the inside of acrylic glazing to create a direct contact overlay attachment. This technique is especially useful for items that would be difficult or time-consuming to attach by traditional methods like doilies, delicate paper cutouts, and very fragile papers or textiles. This badly deteriorated sampler was beyond conservation treatment, according to a textile conservator, but the acrylic DCO makes a good presentation of it using this reversible, minimally invasive technique. This fragile, torn paper document was successfully presented in acrylic DCO mounting, providing overall support and avoiding potential damage. The owner declined conservation treatment and insisted on framing the original, but I would have preferred to frame a high-quality digital reproduction, and we could have cleaned it up too. In this DCO acrylic mount for a whole Wall Street Journal, a clear film sling under the front page provides primary support, while the contact with the acrylic supports the top sheet almost invisibly. Usually, polyester batting in the acrylic DCO assembly provides pressure of spring tension sufficient to hold the item in position against the inside of the acrylic sheet. A very rigid backer is necessary, and the fitting of the framing package needs to be tight enough to keep the materials in place. Dew point condensation could be particularly harmful in acrylic DCO framing, but since acrylic is a much better insulator than glass, the dew point condition is much less likely to occur because it would require an extremely rapid, radical change of temperature. While dew point condensation is not likely with acrylic DCO mounting in normal climate-controlled display conditions, it's still a natural phenomenon and a matter of environmental exposure. So it's important to understand dew point conditions and to inform customers about preventing condensation in the proper care, handling, display, and maintenance of their framing. Again, never use glass for DCO mounting. As shown here, glass condenses moisture readily in dew point conditions. Acrylic resists condensation in similar conditions because it's a better insulator than glass and typically thicker. Moisture could still condense on acrylic, but it takes longer. The temperature differential needed for dew point condensation, perhaps 20 degrees or so, between the air temperature and the surface temperature, might not be achieved, and the dew point hazard usually passes before moisture condenses on the acrylic. Direct contact overlay mounting techniques can greatly expand the picture framer's range of mounting options, especially for difficult items, and provide benefits of significant value to customers. In order to make the most of DCO mounting opportunities, learn and practice the techniques on gallery pieces and use them as unique sales displays.